Welcome to the Wing Chun Discussion Podcast with your hosts, Dane and Vito, interviewing Wing Chun practitioners and instructors, expanding the world of Wing Chun. Welcome to the Wing Chun Podcast. I'm your host, Vito, and
I'm Dane, and we're here with Sifu Adam Williss of the Dragon Institute, and he's from Irvine and Dana Point in California.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate being on this.
yeah, it's nice to meet you. Adam, I've seen you online. You have your videos on like instructional Wing Chun, and personally, I've seen them pop up on like on the Reddit, the subreddit on Wing Chun.
Yeah, I'm on there too.
Yeah, so that's been cool. It's always interesting when like you see somebody in video and then you're like able to talk to them.
yeah, put a name with a face. Yeah,
so that's pretty cool. So we're super happy to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Where you're from? Tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Well, originally, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and then my mom got transferred with her work down to Jacksonville, Florida, when I was about 12 or 13. So I grew up most of those years through junior high and high school in Jacksonville, Florida, which is in the northeast region, about 30 minutes south of Georgia. So very close to Georgia there, right on the Atlantic Ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it like for you growing up in Jacksonville?
It was interesting, real hot area down there, and at least to most of the country, very humid. And Jacksonville isn't a huge population, but it's interesting how Jacksonville it's very very southern. Leonard Skinner actually is from Jacksonville. A lot of people don't know that; they think they're from Alabama, but they're really from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're from Jacksonville. So there's a lot of it's a southern place. People don't really realize that. They think of Florida as beachy and a lot of more. They think of South Florida more.
Yeah, that's it.
But North Florida, as far as where I'm from, is very. It's got a lot of Georgia influence, so there's a lot of Southern culture in there, and Southern food and things like that. So that was different when I moved from Baltimore, because Baltimore didn't really have that,
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved down there and just grew up there, and I grew up at the beach though, and that's where I found my Sifu, who is my Sifu to today, right there in Jacksonville Beach.
Oh, wow. Who is that? I didn't know.
Bill Graves is his name. He keeps a low key, but I just kind of found him. A buddy of mine that I went to high school with was attending his classes, and he said, "Come check it out." So I did, and I just kept on going.
Does he still have a school there in Jacksonville?
No. He teaches privately, and then he gets his group together just kind of out of his house.
Okay, so when did you make your way over to the Pacific side?
I believe that was 2003, and then I was working with Chase, J.P. Morgan Chase, and I met my wife through work, and then I got transferred out here, out to Orange County, California, which is a whole lot different too than Jacksonville or Baltimore. It's a whole lot different out here. A lot more people, and just a whole different. A lot more expensive too.
So, did you find a new teacher when you went out there to California? Did you meet any new teachers?
I did meet. I met a couple teachers, but in the end, I was still, wanting to continue with my Sifu as what I saw in other places, just didn't really have the same, in my mind, effectiveness to as far as what I was experiencing before. So
Hmm.
I'm still with my Sifu.
Gotcha. What's one thing that that your Sifu teaches that really sticks with you?
Practicality in everything he does. He's a straight to the point, super super honest guy, and sometimes that honesty, a lot of people can't handle that honesty. It's brutal honesty, and he's one of these guys that's just like, okay, enough talk, can you fight? you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so he just let's get to the point. What do you can talk all you want. So with that level of honesty and practicality, you're kept to a standard by him that sometimes other people that are, yeah, that just don't have that level of honesty, um, don't keep.
So do you guys do a lot of sparring in your school or in your teacher's school? Did you do a lot of sparring and gore
Oh
style
yeah,
and
we
stuff like
did.
that?
We certainly, yeah. We the what we did was, the two things we had were mouthpieces and cups,
Hmm.
and we'd duke it out. We'd get bloody lips quite often. A very, you know just that's just kind of the guy that he was, and we'd spar every single class. There was never a class that we really didn't spar. I can't remember. Um, there was warm ups, and then a lesson of the day, and then after all that we'd spar. So that's how we'd end every time.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a good way to learn mistakes pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, very little discussion of what was going on because you have your mouthpieces in. So nobody can really understand
Okay.
you what you're talking about. When it's time
Uh-huh.
for sparring, you put your mouthpieces in, you be quiet, and you learn by getting hit. And the whole thing was, if you get hit, it's your fault for getting hit. It's not the other person's fault. It's always your fault. So you try to figure out, okay, well, what did I do here? And you're trying to be as honest as possible, take your ego out of it too, which
Hmm.
is no easy thing for anyone that tries to do it. It's you're getting hit, and the way that we also hit to the head. A lot of people, when they're sparring, they don't hit to the head. Well, we hit to the head all the time, so you get bruises, you get cut lips, no serious injuries, but bumps and bruises all the time.
Now, is this something you brought into your school to teach your students as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's just how I was taught to do it. So it was never a question as to if we're gonna hit each other or not. It's just that's what I thought. That's what I thought all Wing Chun did. I had no idea that anything else, that some people didn't really hit and spar, and I just thought that everybody did that. The other thing that we never really did is we never really did gloves or headgear or anything like that. It was like, well, we're training an art that we're not gonna be able to have headgear or gloves while we're doing it. So let's train as realistically as possible.
Wow. I'm assuming though, like when you're sparring in class, it's more of a controlled spar. It's not like a full contact or anything like
Yeah,
that.
it's all about precision.
Uh-huh.
And it's all about, when I say precision, it's also a matter of where you hit somebody. When you hit somebody in the head, for the most part, you're trying to hit them in the chin. You're trying not to hit them in the cheek or the nose or anywhere else. You're trying to be very precise. So there's a great deal of precision that goes with it. Um, and Also, as you do that, you're not overly punching. You're but you're also not under punching either. So there's a precision level of how hard you're going to.
You're letting them know that you made the contact or that you could make it, right?
Well, no, you never pull a punch and say, I could have got you here. You basically, you always hit, but you're never trying to really, like, go super, super hard, but you're also not going to super soft either. So there's a medium that's in there. Basically, the trying to tell how hard to go is every time you must be able to move their mass. You must be able to move their body. So you can't pull it and just say, hey, and set it and say, hey, I could have got you here. You have to literally do the act of punching them, and you have to move them to where it's if they're coming into you, you stop them. If they're generally in one place, you move them back.
Okay.
So that was the always the which is still, I still hold that true, but that's always the barometer of what a strike actually is. So there was no question of, well, I could have got you here. No, I could have got you here. So it takes all those questions away as to who could have got who, or over theorizing on things. It's just a matter of bam. Well, that happened, so don't let it happen again.
And like you said, it's the fault of the person who got hit.
Yes,
So
it's the person's fault who got hit, which is a very it's a very honest and simple way to go about it.
that's it's starting to make sense, because when it comes to controlled sparring, you're right about, like, there's a balance, right? Because you're not trying to kill the guy or the
Right.
girl or whoever you're practicing with, but
Yeah.
but you do want to practice, right? You want to be able to practice those techniques. And so there is some gray area in there, but I think the more rules that you remove, then probably the clearer it becomes as a practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And having someone like my Sifu who was always in control. Everything he did, is always in control. His emotions are always in control, but yet he's very, very confident in everything that he's doing. He would
Oh,
not only tell you the way, he would literally show you the way. He would, there was never, I should do this, so go ahead and do it. It was more just a matter of, well, here, just do this. Just kind of cutting through all the BS and showing you exactly how to do it. And he was never afraid to hit you, and you were never afraid to hit him. So it
wow.
wasn't. The other thing is, that's just what you do. I mean, you're not worried about hitting your Sifu, because he's never really out there to clobber you. He's there to help you, and he will hit you, but he's going to hit you in an attempt to show you this is how it needs to be done, so you can do that. And just to have that level of honesty I think is so crucial, to where you're not afraid to hit and get hit by anyone.
Mm. I think that's a special thing, because, like, with this approach that your Sifu was taking, like, and his honesty and his directness, you become very comfortable with, giving and taking a hit.
Yeah, that's true. You
In
become
that
very
sense.
comfortable in what most people see as super uncomfortable.
Right. So I'm thinking about this, and I want to ask you this question, because you brought up before, like, you have to take your ego out of it, right?
Yeah,
So I imagine and in my own experience too, like, when you're doing this kind of practice, sometimes if a person gets hit, they get hit maybe harder than they would have liked to, get mad, and then it becomes, now it's not about practicing the technique. It's like they're swinging. What's your approach to how do you approach that phenomenon?
during training, everyone has those moments that hey, this is you get tested all the time, every single person.
Hmm.
So the number one best thing that you can do, that my Sifu did, and I try my best to do as well, is to be the example. And
Mm.
that's kind of what I'm getting at is, yeah, you need to hit him. You need to hit your Sifu, and he needs to um, allow you to hit him sometimes. I mean, because then you see exactly how he reacts when he gets hit. So that example shows you, oh, this isn't about getting mad. This isn't about, oh, I might have hit a little too hard or not. This is a matter of, well, if somebody hit me too hard, it's my own fault. I should have been better. It's not their fault. They're not doing anything to me. We're all here to try to help each other by doing the right thing with one another. And that, just that example of, yeah, sure. I mean, I know I've hit my Sifu too hard at times, but and that's only because as you get better as a student, you don't have the same control that your Sifu has. So he's always that barometer of, here's this, and I can tell you, and I can't ever remember that my Sifu hit me too hard. He hit me good, but he just, he has so much control of himself that it's just like, wow, this is amazing. And the only time I would get hit harder would be because I was the one rushing into it.
That really gives you something to work towards, huh?
It does. It's a wonderful example. And as I have taken on, students of my own over the last 15 or so years, you see how important it is to be able to be that example for them.
Cool. Wow. That's really special. It's cool to hear you talk about, this relationship with your Sifu and with your experience.
Yeah. I appreciate giving the chance to talk about it. He's just an honest guy, just a simple, honest guy. And, a lot of people don't really know about him. He's not out there to try to really be famous or anything like that. He just, he loves Wing Chun. He loves teaching but he's always taken a really honest approach. And because of that, I give him all the credit because he's been that example.
So let's switch gears here because you mentioned you've been teaching for some time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, what's that like for you when you're in the classroom? Like, what's your approach to teaching?
Well, I love teaching. And I think my Sifu really loves teaching too. So, being a Wing Chun teacher, as any teacher, I think you have to first love to teach and you have to love the subject matter. So those two things go together. And because of that, you're so passionate about what you do, and then you're also so passionate about teaching. The combination between the love of the art and the love of helping people to feel the same things as you've felt and get the same benefits as you've gotten over the year, it's just a really perfect marriage of the passion for the art and then the passion for helping them. And there's really not too many things that are like that you can blend together in that way that just are so. Again, I use the word honest because I think that's the thing that we all need in this world is honesty, and there's very few things that are that honest in the world. So that's how I approach it from that standpoint, as just trying to be as honest as I possibly can, but then delivering it in a way that each person can appreciate, because everyone learns different, from the old to the young to men to women to different personalities, introverts, extroverts, you name it. You have got to attune to how they learn. You have got to, you've got to harmonize with how they can understand. So in other words, you need to talk to them on their level. And once you can talk to them on their level, then you can start to harmonize with them, and then you can start to take them to all kinds of heights from there.
So each of your students is unique in the way that you approach them?
Every single one. Yeah, there's not one person that is the same.
Have you had one student that was really challenging to try to get the concepts of what you were trying to teach?
I have. I've had many students that have had many challenges and different kinds of challenges.
Hmm. Yeah.
They're
What's your
just,
approach when you have like a super challenging one like that?
well, you got to harmonize. You got to find a way to harmonize with them. You got to find a way to be on their frequency or their level.
Mm.
That's what it's all about. It's because everyone thinks a certain way. Everyone perceives the world in a certain way. So if if you're trying to teach everyone just like, the same way, not everyone's going to get it. You
So,
know.
so are you just talking about your communication method with the person, or do you actually change your curriculum and maybe some of the drills that you would
Uh,
practice with them as well?
oh, no, I'm talking about my communication with them.
Yeah.
So for the most part, they're all doing the same things. It's just that how they, uh, unless they're a private student. If a private student, I may take in different ways because I don't have a whole class. But in the classroom setting, everyone's generally doing the same things. However, when I communicate and deliver these things in the classroom, I've got to talk to them all in a way that they're going to receive it. It's my responsibility when I have a class of 10 people in there in my class. I need to make sure that every single one of these people um, understands exactly what I mean. And sometimes I've got to look at somebody individually and say, here's what I mean for you. And over here, and then I go to somebody, well, here's what I mean for you. you know
Hmm.
so no, it's not necessarily the curriculum. The curriculum's still the same, um, but I need them all to appreciate the curriculum and appreciate why it is what it is. And I can't do that by talking to them all in the same way.
Yeah. That makes sense because, I think in the tradition of martial arts, it's always been like you teach things with metaphor, and so being able to relate one metaphor to like a student that's like, if they were like a mechanic, you could use mechanic metaphors, to help them understand, this
Absolutely,
kind of thing. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
And
I've
that
got.
shows, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Whatever they do, they based on what they understand and what they're already doing. So that's super important to try to get through to them. And that's the key. I think that's the key to their progress because in the beginning, it's really hard to it's really hard to get someone to wrap their mind around this art because it is there's so many concepts in it that are foreign to the American way of more is more. Right? It's the American
Hmm.
way. More is more.
Yeah.
Let me power my way through.
Yeah. Bigger is
Are
better.
you're talking about the kun kuit, the wisdom of Wing Chun, right? Like the sayings.
Yeah, there's the sayings of it, but even beyond the sayings, there are lessons even beyond the sayings, and there's lessons are found in how you approach certain things. A lot of the lessons in the Kyun Kiwit are kind of give you an idea on how to learn Wing Chun, but the philosophy of Wing Chun is there's more than that than what's in the Kyun Kiwit. You've got a person has to accept the idea that less is more. That's one thing
Hmm.
right
Hmm.
away. I mean, I don't know that there's any specific thing in the Kyun Kiwit that says that, right?
Hmm.
But you have to say, okay, I'm taking a minimalist approach to these things, and I'm going to I'm not going to try to do as many things together at one time. There's just a lot of philosophy that is a part of understanding the approach and the strategy of Wing Chun that is often very contrary to many other martial arts.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
Wing Chun is pretty special in some of those ways, like with the efficiency, the point A to point B stuff, and the minimalistic um, aspect of it.
Absolutely. And you know, the art is so simple, and the art in and of itself is very, very honest. That's why I like to use the word honest, because honesty is simplicity. I mean, you think about it. Simplicity is honesty. There's no fluff, there's no this.
Hmm.
And the art is just so honest. And if only we could be as honest as the art really is trying to help us to be,
Hmm.
with the simplicity, the directness, the efficiency. If we could just stick with that and stop being distracted by other things, getting in our ego and all those different things, we can become so much more, and we can learn the art faster, but we can be so much more for our families and our jobs and everything else.
So, martial arts and a lot of the philosophy in the East is about overcoming the ego. Um, what are some of the struggles or challenges with that you have with that?
Well, I have an ego just like everybody else. We
Sure.
all
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And um, it's at times an ego can be used to your advantage, but
Hmm.
it's when that ego gets in the way of honesty that balance is so important. And that's why I think Wing Chun and some other arts, other kung fu arts as well, and there's others out there, but for me, Wing Chun has helped so much to be in the center of all kinds of different things. So yeah, use your ego for helping you, but at the same time, is this ego being used to prevent you from learning or prevent you from the truth?
Hmm.
And that's where the challenge is. Because if you had no ego whatsoever, you'd have no ambition. It's like you want that to move forward, but then at the same time, you need to, other times when, let's say, you're getting hit, well, you can't blame the other person for for them hitting you. It's your fault. You're the one who got hit. And
Hmm.
that level of honesty is so, so important, and that's how you take that ego out and learn higher levels.
Yeah, it's like a lifelong process, right? Of your practice of a balance between like a selflessness and like an ego.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's got to be a certain level of selfishness and a certain level of selflessness, and
Hmm.
the balance of both of those things is the answer. And I think that's true of everything, you name it. That the balance is the key to so many things.
So we're talking about a lot of different principles right now of the Wing Chun, and the directness, the honesty, as you said, and we're talking about the balance of being in control of your ego. I wonder what are some other principles that you really like to stress on your students, like in your teaching,
Um, you
if we
know,
haven't covered them already.
some of the, I consider Wing Chun to be an internal art. I know
Hmm.
some consider it to be an external and internal, and I can see how there's some elements of external to it. But for the most part, I think the highest level of Wing Chun are found within internal things. Now, then the question becomes, well, what are internal things versus external things? Um, I look at the external things as being hard on the outside, and for the most part, you know, the Wing Chun that I do is really hard on your inside. So you're working extremely, extremely hard on certain muscles that allow you uh, to have soft hands, that allow you to flow like water, that allow you to feel strong, but yet at the same time, that strength comes from connections within your body and connections to the ground.
Hmm.
So that is a principle that is very, very difficult for people to get. Specifically anyone that really anyone. Sometimes women can get that a little easier than men, just because I think men are taught to be harder on the outside, and what do you do? Oh, try harder, try harder. Well, it's not necessarily, with Wing Chun, it's not a matter of trying harder, it's trying smarter and more specific.
So
That's a
there's
lesson that it's hard to, difficult for people to get at first, because their whole lives, whatever, a lot of times, what we do when we come to a problem, well, what do you do? I got mad about it, and I pushed harder, and I fixed it. I pushed harder, and that's, I think, a lot of times, what we're taught to do is just, oh, let me push harder. But
yeah.
what if we took the Wing Chun concepts of, well, wait a second, let me calm my nerves on the inside. Let me calm my mind. Let me think about my goal. Let me focus. Let me find a way. Let me have a knowing that there's going to be a way without actually even seeing the way. So
Mm,
that's another concept of, you don't need to see the entire staircase in order to take the first step. And that's
mhm,
what a big thing Wing Chun teaches is, let me just get on my way. Let me just flow. Let me be like water. Water doesn't say, hey, there's a rock down the stream here. Let me get ready and prepare for it way back here. It deals with it in the moment. So there's calm. There's water is calm. Water is it doesn't worry about things that are ahead. They're just operating in the present and doing what needs to be done in the moment. That is really, really difficult for people, because um, you know almost everyone feels like they need to have the security of knowing what's ahead. Well, in
mhm,
the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what's ahead as long as you have right now handled. That's what a big thing that Wing Chun teaches is how to operate in the present, and how to just flow, and have faith in where you're headed. No, not forgetting where you're headed. Obviously, you're going to the center line, right? Not forgetting
mhm.
where you're headed, but being grounded. Being grounded with connecting to the ground, connecting to yourself, but then also remembering where you're headed, and allowing yourself to just flow. There's going to be an answer. It's going to come as long as you stick to these certain principles.
That's interesting that you brought up some of the socio-cultural influences and how we learn and how we approach problems. And then when you bring something in like a practice like Wing Chun with its own principles, it does take a bit of rewiring, to really get into it. Given that Wing Chun is like a simple but not easy practice, right? So it does take a little bit of work to be able to work on
Yeah,
that.
it does. It takes a lot of work. Like you said, simple is not easy. And
Yeah.
in fact, I think simple is probably one of the hardest things there are. If you because you're cutting out all the fat, you're cutting out all the extraneous things that don't really matter in the end. You're hack away at the unessentials, as Bruce Lee said. Um, Simplicity is one of the most difficult things there is, and and trying to do that is really, really hard work. So you have to also be willing to put in the hard work. And one of the challenges with a lot of people today, they expect things to be given to them more, and maybe they're not willing to work as hard, or whatever. It really, really does require a lot of hard work, but it's that hard work, it's that very hard work that, if you're willing to put it in, that's where growth happens. you know
Yeah, that's the internal stuff part of it that you cultivate, right? When you do that hard work.
yes, it's the benefits that are created from the hard work. You put the work in, and the benefits happen. And that's just, skill developed through hard work. But that skill is not only a physical skill, because it changes you. I like to say that you don't really learn Wing Chun, you become Wing Chun. And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is that when you put the work in, it changes you on three separate levels. It changes you physically, it changes you mentally, and it changes you emotionally, spiritually. It just changes you. I mean, and when those three changes happen is when you really become Wing Chun, and it doesn't ever stop. That's the beauty of it. Some things, oh, you go, and even some martial arts, you go and take a martial art. I get to black belt. Oh, great, I'm done. Well, that's
Hmm.
not the case in what we're doing. There's no end to development and how deep it can go.
I got to say that's been my experience as well, because it's not like you're learning techniques, it's not like you're drilling combinations, for self defense. Like that's not the whole thing. It's more like it just becomes intertwined with your life. You do kung fu, and that's those principles blossom elsewhere in your life too. Like it's not a binary anymore. It's
Right.
become a singularity.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You do become it, and it becomes you, and everything benefits from your practice of it. Everything. There's nothing that it doesn't make better or more efficient, or it's nothing that in my mind, there's nothing out there that isn't Wing Chun in my life. Everything is Wing Chun.
Hmm.
And the more I can apply these principles that I've learned from what, a long time ago I thought was just a combat art, the more I can apply these principles, I mean, the better I get at everything. The more my life is improved across the board.
So let's switch gears here, because I know you have an online component of your teaching.
I do. Earlier this year, I started an online program for beginners that helps basically takes them through the first 90 days uh, of of learning. And and in my first 90 days that I teach, I've learned traditionally, but sometimes my curriculum can be somewhat progressive, at least how I teach things. For
Hmm.
one instance, I teach the dummy right away. And this
Hmm.
is, I know that's not necessarily a traditional way of doing it. In fact, my Sifu didn't teach the wooden dummy right away. But for me, I just, well, number one, the dummy is just too cool. It's just too cool to keep for later. And number two, when I look at anybody that's really, really great at anything, I look at it as, oh, they started really young at something. They just, like pro surfers or you name it, they just started doing all these different things earlier. So my thought is, well, the sooner you can do the wooden dummy, the better. You know, now that's not to say that you're not still doing your Sunim Tao and your other things. It's just that why not get you going on this stuff and uh, and keep you moving forward on it. I also think it's good for the more Western mindset to be able to keep someone's interest longer when you give them something that's so cool as the wooden dummy. And hopefully they make an investment in buying the dummy and buying a dummy of their own or making a dummy on their own. They have it themselves. One of the hardest things for a teacher is keeping students longer. You dream that all students are going to stick it out and become Sifus. That's as a Sifu,
Hmm.
that's what I want of every single student of mine. I want them all to be able to go on and to get to higher levels. But the
Yeah.
reality is very, very, very few do. So The more that I can give them, the better. And I want to use the wooden dummy. I want to use online training. I want to use every single method I can to try to help them to reap these benefits and to truly get good at what they're doing. So my online gets people going. Now, not everyone, across the world has, access to Wing Chun. So with the power of the internet, I have this program, my online program, that can take you through the first 90 days, and then after that, then I have another level that's beyond that. But it starts with the first 90 days for beginners.
Does that include the wooden dummy, the online program, that first 90 days?
Yes, it does.
Oh,
And yeah, right away.
yeah, they're
Yeah, I
gonna like
don't. Yeah.
that.
And and then if they don't have a dummy, they do the Hong Jong, the air dummy.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach that right off the bat too. So the more that they can get it right off the bat, the better. I look at it as, and the majority don't stick it out, and that's the reality of human nature, I guess. But yeah, that's what I do. And then recently with the coronavirus, coming out and everything, I have started uh, online classes now, live classes,
Mm-hmm.
virtual classes. So these are now open weekly. So I'm getting some people around the world that are tuning in to my online classes.
Is
In
that
addition to,
a membership thing?
it is it's not a membership. What I've done is it's donation based. So what I'm doing is I'm offering donation based classes. Basically, you don't have to pay anything if you don't have anything, especially in this time right now. But if you have something to donate, I say please do if you can. Basically, they go online to my site dragoninst.com, and they can sign up for the program and tune in during that time. And then what's so nice about this is that I get to show them, and then I also get to see them in real time. I get to correct them in real time, and they can ask questions in real time, which is nice.
Is that on the schedule, or do you just kind of announce it when you're getting ready to do it?
No, I'm doing it. I'm doing it weekly now. I'm doing it on Mondays and Wednesdays at 11 Pacific time. So they do have to go to my website to sign up for it, because I don't put the link for the actual class public. But if they've signed up for it and basically they've given their email, then we'll email it out to the individual people that have signed up for it.
Oh, gotcha. So that sounds like it's working pretty well so far.
Yeah, we've gotten a few. Just started since this, the virus has been putting everybody on shelter.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've gotten a few, Germany and Ecuador and Canada. So we've gotten, and as well as people in America.
Cool. I wonder what's your advice to people that are Wing Chun practitioners that want to practice at home if they're like still learning. I don't know. What's one thing that maybe they could be doing right now that would be most beneficial?
The big thing about Wing Chun is not letting your focus drift and focusing on the fundamental basics.
Hmm.
And this is really, really hard for a beginner. Beginners are very excited and their minds everywhere. I want to do it all. um,
Hmm.
what can they do? Well, I know it sounds like the cliche again of Wing Chun, but they need to do Sunum Tao. They need to practice their Sulim Tao. They need to sit in that stance. They need to they need to have their body change. They need to feel comfortable in their body, which is changing into a Wing Chun weapon. And that's the purpose of Su Nim Tao is meant to change your body. It's meant to develop the structure. And
Hmm.
without putting in the work there, it won't happen. Your body will not attune to these lines of power that are specific to Wing Chun, and you really don't see it many other places. Other martial arts, other sports, things like that. It's not the same lines of power, and it's not. You don't develop it in the same way. So shoot, Sunim Tao is really the answer, but then at the same time, if someone can't keep their focus on something that is perceived to be very, very too basic, then
Hmm.
they're going to have a hard time. But the things from Sunim Tao can be then applied to everything else. The lessons from Sunim Tao, the structural elements, the connections within the body, and go slower. I like to say, if you really want to progress as fast as possible, go slow. Your body remembers slow much better than fast.
Yeah. That reminds me of my grandmother is a piano teacher, and she has a sign above the piano. It says, no, a plaque. It's actually written in a plaque, and it says, practice slow to play fast. Practice fast to play with mistakes.
I like it.
Yeah, I've always liked
Cool.
that.
Yeah, music and Wing Chun have a lot of analogies.
Yeah.
We use a metronome too for some of our training.
No kidding, really?
Yeah, yeah. It helps us keep time on certain things, and even on the wooden dummy at first. Even in that 90-day program I was talking about online,
Uh-huh.
part of it is a metronome and being able to hit your individual positions in a certain amount of time. We start slow and then go faster. Not that we're trying to make you go super fast, but at the same time, I want you to know it really well. So if you can hit a position at a certain time and space, then that's similar to what you need to do in reality. You need to be in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for leverage. So yeah, we'll use that on the dummy for shoot, I've even used a metronome during sparring to help people relax more and try to not go so fast.
I haven't heard that from anybody. You're the first person to say like they use
Yeah, my Seagung, who's actually in Florida, he's in Sanford, which is a suburb of Orlando.
Yeah, I'm
I think
familiar.
he started doing that.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and he's a guy that's been doing it since the 70s, late 70s. He's been doing Wing Chun, so he comes up with all kinds of crazy, innovative training methods.
Neat. Cool. So, let's see. One of the other things we wanted to talk a little bit about is like your kids' classes. Um, so I'd like to touch on that.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
tell us a
so
little about that.
sure. I started teaching kids when we founded the school, and our school opened about 10 years ago. I hadn't taught kids before that because I had only taught out of my garage. My Sifu did not teach kids. He just he found he wasn't as successful in teaching kids. Didn't exactly have to have a certain amount of patience to teach kids. So that helps. I've always had a lot of patience um,
Hmm.
for whatever reason. And that helps a lot with obviously teaching kids because you have to tell them the same things over and over. And like I was saying before, you have to also be willing to teach each person in a different way. And honestly, I don't look at kids as any different than adults, really. I just look at them as a different, a different approach, if that kind of makes sense. Everyone has
Yeah.
their issues, and everyone generally wants to do the right thing. So you just got to try to find a way to harmonize with each individual person, and this includes kids too. So coupling with patience and just making sure that you're not, you never angry with a kid. You never get angry with anyone or raise your voice to a kid. At least in my opinion, You just let them know, and you let them know directly something was wrong or that was very good.
Yeah.
And that's the approach that I take. I'm always letting them know, no, that's not right. This is right. So I'm always, letting them know all the time that. So, and I think that's what they want. They just want to do the right thing. And I've found, some of them can be very, very good students. Now, as far as the curriculum for them, I still teach them Sunam Tao right off the bat. Now, can I
Hmm.
go as deep as I can with adults into many of the things? Not always. I can only give them what they can receive. So having a sensitivity, an awareness of what they are capable of receiving, and each person is different. Having a sensitivity to that, you give them what they can get from it, and there are great benefits for kids. Great benefits, but can you teach all the intricacies of the art? No, not necessarily, but you can give them a lot more than I think a lot of people think.
Hmm. I imagine I was thinking like when it comes to kids and Wing Chun, I was thinking maybe the approach to teaching would have to be like more active. Like you have to get the kids moving, because they're kids. They need to get up and run and jump around and stuff.
They do. It just, the way that I start it is actually I start class with Sunam Tao, and
Hmm.
it's in the very beginning it's not active, but at the very end it's very active.
I
So it's
see.
it's almost like their reward for focusing in the beginning on Sunam Tao is all this fun in the end. you know
Hmm. I
So
see.
yeah, so all of them basically, depending on how big the class is. If I don't have that many people in class that day, or maybe I'll go through like five of them. Each will lead Sunam Tao in front of everybody, and that'll take a little while, and they'll be focused, and then from there, then maybe we'll do chain punches after that, and then I do a couple of exercises. We do some wide horse training, and then we'll do some drills, and then um, even wooden dummy. I'll put them on the wooden dummy too. I've got a small little dummy in my that one of my students helped me make.
Oh, you know what? I saw that. I had looked at your website and I saw that tiny wooden dummy. I was like,
Yeah,
that is so cute. That's
yeah. It fits kids as young as 5. So
awesome.
yeah. It's actually exactly made to the specifications of my personal wooden dummy, but just
Uh-huh.
60% of it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
it's really cool. But yeah, and then at the end, we'll play a game that really gets them moving, and a game where I get to try to trick them, and they love to be tricked too. So
Oh, that's perfect for kids. Yeah, they love that.
yeah, they like to be tricked. So, and I like to trick
Um,
them, so that's fun too.
so we're gonna wrap up. Do we have time for one more question?
Sure, I'm fine.
You're good. Okay. So I'd like to just zoom out, and because we've talked about your history, we've talked about your approach to teaching and some of the principles, and so Wing Chun today in the world of martial arts has its place, and with MMA that's popular. So I'd kind of like to hear what's your idea about the ecosystem of the martial arts, other kung fu styles and other martial arts styles. Where does Wing Chun fit into there?
That's a good question. Um, Now, of course, my answer is going to be biased because I love Wing Chun,
Of course, sure.
but um, at the same time, I do like all martial arts. That's a if I had many lifetimes, I would probably train many martial arts. Um, but as far as Wing Chun and MMA, and MMA is obviously a phenomenon. It's taken over the martial arts world, and because of that, it's, you know, when the general public thinks of martial arts, they think of MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I mean, it's just taken it over. My personal opinion is that, well, MMA shouldn't be called mixed martial arts. It should be called mixed combat sport.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's you know, just because what I do is very different than what MMA person does. The big thing of, you know, sport training versus versus the martial art training, which includes self defense, but also includes a lot more, as we were talking about the benefits and the philosophy and the integration of all these different things. And to me, that's the beauty of Wing Chun. The beauty is that it's an integrated approach to things. It helps you get rid of your ego. It helps you with your life. It helps you with so many things that, honestly, I just don't see a lot of these combat sports even caring about. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like, you know, many of these combat sports only care about uh, winning in a competition, and can you win this competition?
Mm-hmm.
And that's and breeding. Honestly, it is it. I see a lot of ego with that, and that's one of the things that you know that I see Wing Chun helping you get out of, and being a more kinder, more compassionate person. And I think in the end of the day, this compassion and this harmony and understanding harmony, how to harmonize with things, is is a really great gift of Wing Chun. Whereas you see many of these combat sports, which are very externally driven,
Mm-hmm.
it's they're not meant to try to harmonize with something else. What they're meant to do is they're meant to overpower and fight against. Whereas Wing Chun's not meant to fight against something. Wing Chun is meant to flow, be like water. Of course, accomplish its goal, but uh, you know, uh, flow and not participate in the struggle of so many different things. Where you see a lot of these other these MMA is meant to how can I be better at struggling, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, it's like a resistance. It's
Yes,
like force on force, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And therefore you have steroid use, because obviously you want to be bigger and badder, and
Yeah, you
um,
want to win.
yeah, you want to win, and it's all about winning. And that's just not an integrated approach. And there's the benefit of something such as Wing Chun that has over things like you know like MMA, where there's so much more to it. It's that integrated approach. And that's the beauty. And I think in the end of the day, the philosophy that Wing Chun teaches you and how it teaches you to live your life is the number one thing of the art. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, yes, my Sifu always taught us to hit and get hit and be honest with one another. But at the end of the day, it's really not about fighting. It's going through these things and being super honest in sparring and in your training, that then you can take and the rest of your life benefits from it. And it's just not the same in many of these other things. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's my take on it. I just don't look at the MMA as really the martial art that I know and love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for answering that question, because I know that's a lot what a lot of people are thinking about, especially online when they see Wing Chun matches or things like those videos and stuff. So it's really interesting to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, they I don't know why. people are, Wing Chun people are going and taking matches with other people because it's not really what it's for. It's to protect yourself and also to benefit your life. And it's kind of silly that people are trying to have these matches with other people. I don't understand why they're forgetting its purpose.
Yeah, I think this subject alone can have its own podcast, its own episode, just because there's so much to talk about.
That's true.
But
You're right.
we're gonna wrap up here for today. So yeah, maybe another day we could have another episode. We could talk about that.
Sounds good. Well, I really appreciated you guys having me, and I appreciate your work. Vito, you're working on the site as well.
Yeah, it's all
Dane's on the site,
it's all one big project that we work on, and we're really just trying to promote Wing Chun and getting people connected who want to practice to people who want to teach, and getting your story out there to the people in your area. So hopefully, you'll see some new students someday that said they heard you online.
Yeah. Sounds great. I anything that can promote what we do, the better. It's being a Wing Chun practitioner, less and less people are looking towards Wing Chun these days, and with the MMA, it really is taking over, and more needs to be done. So I really appreciate you guys, what you're doing.
Cool. We appreciate you too. And so our guest has been Adam Williss. He's out of Dana Point, California. And Adam, your website is dragoninst, INST, as in institute.com.
Yes.
And so, so our listeners can find you there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, guys.
And thanks for coming on, Adam.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Wing Chun Discussion Podcast. Log on to wingchundiscussion.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. More episodes are available on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.